Will you join me in prayer for a moment? Great God of all nations and of all people, we come before you on this day to remember your presence with us. Allow your Spirit to blow through this congregation and out into the world. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each heart here be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our salvation. Amen. It is no secret that church people don't like change. Oh, I'm getting some reaction. Okay. For a minute there, I thought I wasn't with church people. And even more significantly, church people do not say goodbye very well. For the most part, we are a bunch of nice people who love stability. And in the congregational way, we like to know what's going on, but don't give us too much information about what's going on. Because that might require us to take a stand. And that might move us out of the category of being nice people. So consult us, but not as a body. We like it better when we are consulted as individuals, regardless of how labor and emotion intensive that may be. But most of the time, if there is an issue that is going to be good for our collective body that involves change, just let us in on it gently. And not too much. For heaven's sakes, don't rock the boat. Now, since it's just you and I here, just a few of us, some of my best friends, closest advisors, and all of that, I would like to let you in on some big news. People in communities of faith all over and even in most times and places do not like change and don't say goodbyes very well. When Moses knew he was dying and God told him he would not see the promised land, he knew from experience the children of Israel, his children, would not take that news well. After all, these were the murmurers and the snitchers and you fill in the blank at every turn. These were the people who wanted to turn around to know why he hadn't left them in Egypt. Yes, they were slaves, but at least they had a roof over their heads. Talk about not dealing well with change. Here was a change that also involved goodbye, and they did it, but not well. When Jesus told his disciples that he was having to leave them in the farewell discourse, that's the fancy term for saying goodbye, and we can't even say it clearly. They wanted to know why he could not take them with him. The more Jesus tried to explain, the more complicated the explanation became. And the disciples just decided that if they didn't listen, farewell and change wouldn't happen, and their beloved master would not leave them. Talk about living in a fairy tale world. And then there is this very picturesque story about an aged Elijah, the great prophet of Israel, who now needs to lead his companion and student Elisha. The Old Testament scholar W. Dennis Tucker says this: This story ends by suggesting that Israel is at a moment of great transition. The great prophet Elijah will be taken up into the heavens, suggesting to the reader and the listener an end. But the text is quick to point out that power of the prophetic office did not disappear with the chariot and horses that stampede out of sight. To the contrary, the text affirms that the power of this prophetic office remains firmly in place in the life of Elisha. And even those of us who have been through this before and have sometimes some deeper spiritual insight don't know how to deal with change and goodbye. Witness the great company of the prophets in this story. Seminary Dean Greg Jones says this about them: they know how to be really, genuinely, exquisitely insensitive. They keep rubbing it into Elisha that this is the day to say goodbye to Elijah. And Elisha each time says, I know, shut up. It's one thing to say a difficult goodbye. It's another to be in the glare of public attention and be asked every few moments, oh dear, how do you feel? Well, we do get a good sense of how Elisha feels. His master has disappeared into a whirlwind, and he tears his clothes into two pieces. If you don't have many pieces of clothing, that's a big deal. And you could even read, tosses away the photo albums, burns the mattress, or smashes up the computer. Whichever is your gesture of finality and despair. That's where Elisha is. The big man is gone. And I never asked for this. You see the tears. They don't need to be in the story. I am well acquainted with grief, with saying goodbye, and with change. Many of you have said to me at various times recently something like this: you know, it is amazing how similar the words and the feelings are coming out of different, diverse corners of this congregation. You say something like this to me: you know, this has not been an easy time for you. We have truly been a challenge, and you have done an admirable job with us. Maybe now you can find something a little more relaxing. Well, you need to factor in that I am not happy if I am relaxing. And I am not happy if I am not facing a challenge. And you know what? I am moving to be an intentional interim in a community of faith where a long-time, widely respected conference minister has retired, and there has been recent significant change. So you guessed it. I am going to be doing a whole lot of listening, being a repository of leftover grief over loss, anger over change, a longing for the old ways and the old, does this sound familiar? Old ways and the old times, and the need to lead the next community of faith to the threshold of new leadership and then not cross over into the promised land. That's where I'm headed. This is my particular ministry. This is my peculiar ministry. And others see that I have particular gifts for helping a community of faith make a crossing from, why didn't you leave us in Egypt? At least we had good food, to a spirited affirmation, a vote to call a new leader to live among them after some of the debris of grief and loss and anger and the reality of change to something different have been cleared away. We can't go back again. So let us go forward with hope, joy, and togetherness, with new knowledge of who we are now in these changing times, these times where there aren't the familiar guideposts. And you know, that's going to be okay too. And there is one more piece of information that you as a community of faith hear, and that community of faith that will welcome me there in about 6 weeks share as congregations being in transition. You have the experience of successfully. Please note I said successfully. I didn't say graciously or smoothly. I said successfully. You have successfully experienced the transfer of the mantle. The mantle? You know what a mantle is? The mantle of pastoral leadership from a deeply influential, long-term settled senior minister to this very, very human, temporary, transitional pastoral leader who walked with you through huge issues and significant change. And you know what? This successful, faithful relationship you have shared with me should give you, as individuals and a community, great confidence and great hope that when your next called, settled senior minister arrives, you can do that again. You see, as the old story for this morning reminds us, the mantle of leadership does not change. It will still be one very human being following a vocation, a calling, who will take up the mantle of pastoral leadership. And you will be the recipients as the community of faith, God's people, of the assumption of the mantle once again. This is a good, healthy move, and you will thrive because of it, and all you have journeyed through and with to this point. It will be the old, old story told in new words, from a new voice, with new language. Why, you know, it will even be in the words of that great philosopher Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again. It is a great day to be alive. Thanks be to God. Amen.